I'm Chef Dawn Ludwig. Welcome to my kitchen. One of the things that I've discovered over the years since Always Hungry has been published and working with the pilot is that one of my favorite recipes can tend to be one of the hardest to make. It always surprises me. So I'm going to walk you through it because it's quite simple. That's the cauliflower soup. Now, I love this recipe and have been making it for probably 20 years. It's my favorite because there are only a few ingredients: onions, cauliflower, water, salt, and pepper. That's pretty much it. Who knew that combining those few ingredients could be so delicious? Now, there are variations that you can use that will make it a little more rich or a little more interesting, but really the basic recipe I've served hundreds of times, and people rave about it every single time. It's great chilled, it's great warmed, it's great as a base to add lots of flavors that you might love, curries or really fancy flavors, or it's great just by itself. So we're gonna make it. Today, you can, if you want, like I said, saute the onions in a little bit of oil. That'll add a little depth. If you want to use some sort of chicken broth or vegetable broth, you could. I find that those aren't consistent, so including them in my recipe wasn't something that I could do and know that I would get a consistently good flavor. So the two things that are going to make this dish most delicious, this is what you need to pay attention to. Number one, texture. Number two, salt. So how do we get the texture right? I've cut up some onions here, and you'll notice I just chopped them into large pieces. I'm going to puree this soup, and so I don't need to mince them finely. It's the other thing I like. It's quick and easy, doesn't take long to chop some onions in really big chunks. I'm going to include them in the pot. I've taken a head of cauliflower, and I've chopped it in pieces. Again, they don't have to be pretty because you're going to puree them anyway. So here I've got all my cauliflower and my onions. Now, the recipe calls for about 4 cups of water. And I'm going to put the 4 cups of water, but I may need a little more because this was a big head of cauliflower. I want the water to come up just to almost cover the cauliflower. Remember, it's easier to add water than it is to take away. So when I put this on the stove, I'm going to cook it. And it's going to get really creamy and soft. It'll take maybe 15 minutes for the cauliflower to get soft. And once it does, I'm going to puree it. I'm going to add a little salt to start off with. And again, remember, the second thing that makes this delicious is the amount of salt you use. So use what the recipe calls for. Little pepper. Now at the end, like I said, it's quite versatile. You can do lots of things with it. You can garnish it with a little pesto on the top. You could put other flavors with it, or you can just serve it by itself. If you're eating a meal that's pretty low in fat, you can add cream at the end. Really doesn't need it. But if you have a low-fat recipe, go ahead and do that. If you're serving it with a higher fat meal, it's a perfect recipe to add a little bit of good carbohydrate without adding a whole lot of refined carbohydrate. So I'm going to show you the amount of water here, and then we're going to put it on the stove to cook. So look, when you can see, we'll zoom in at how we have the water almost to cover the cauliflower. We'll be back to see how it looks once it's cooked.